Joining us now to talk a bit more about strategy is Roger Nightingale, strategist at Pointon York. Roger, thanks for coming along. So, as we were just mentioning in the headlines there, bit of a mixed bag on the economic data front. Poor figures out from Germany, as we were discussing with an economist earlier in the show. But some of the RICS data, for instance, on UK housing market doesn't look too bad. Where do you stand now on the green shoots debate?
Look, we're seeing a slower rate of decline, but the expectation that we should by now be seeing growth, I think is slightly bizarre, and certainly you would not expect Germany. Germany, last of all, would be the country that would show an advance. Germany is suffering from a severely overvalued currency, tight money, and a pretty appalling supply, as it were, of labour. They've taken industrial production down by 20%. They've barely taken any labour out of the system. And what all the workers know is that a lot of them are going to be sacked in the next few months. And you wouldn't expect those guys to do a lot of spending at the moment. I mean, I'm surprised that, in a way, people are surprised that there aren't more green shoots.
Hey Roger, this is Christine. Speaking of spending, do you expect the Chinese to do a lot of spending? We are expecting a whole slew of economic data coming from China this week, gauging China demand. How do you think China is going to support the global recovery picture?
I don't think it's going to support it at all. I'm very depressed about what's happening in China. I think actually the Chinese authorities are talking up the economy, whistling in the wind. The data that I look at isn't at all good. One of the things I look at all around the world is imports. I think imports are a very strong coincident indicator of activity. Imports in China have been falling sharply in recent months. They are 20% down on a year ago. The idea that the Chinese economy is strong seems to me to be bizarre, and I suspect that we're going to get data out fairly shortly that brings it into line with the reality. And I think there's going to be huge disappointments there. By the way, it's even worse in India.
Hi, Roger. What do you think about the U.S. here? We have an increase in savings, which is a wonderful thing sometimes, except when you're trying to jumpstart your economy, because we're seeing spending falling and also credit now falling 2 months in a row at a pretty remarkable and unprecedented pace. I mean, does that bode well for the length and the veracity of this recovery?
No. I mean, I'm not even sure there is a recovery here. I think we should be talking about slower rates of decline. The recovery is in the future. Having said all that, it seems to me the American economy is the one that's looking best in the world at the moment. The data is fairly reliable. It looks as if we're getting into an area where declines are pretty slow, and it's not impossible that 3, 4, 5 months out we will be back to growth. Or I think it'll be pretty anemic growth. What worries me is the speed with which the 10-year bond yield has risen, because if that carries on doing what it has been doing, in fact we're going to put the damper on any recovery at all. We won't see recovery. We'll see the thing drifting into maintained negatives.
Let me ask you about the big sell-off in the materials sector here yesterday. That does not bode well for economic confidence, but it has been an outperformer in the short term. Do you think this is the beginning of a trend reversal?
Well, someone like me always said, what is going on here? We know that industrial production everywhere in the world is extraordinarily weak. There might have been just a little bit of a dead cat bounce in a couple of months' worth of data out in the East and in the States. But, crikey, we saw enormous increases in commodity prices. Did that make sense? It did not. I thought that was the speculators, and when speculators are going in a direction other than that which is supported by the fundamentals, it's going to turn nasty at some stage. I think, in fact, yesterday was possibly the beginnings of reality, and there might be much more reality to come.